Capricorn, something is shifting inside you right now. Mars just touched your destiny, and today it begins to speak. Today, Mars is lighting a fire deep inside your sign, Capricorn. A quiet strength you've carried for years is finally waking up. Stay with me, because every part of this message builds on the last, and the ending will hit you the hardest. 1. Why July 24th feels different. There are ordinary days, and then there are days that feel like a page turning before you even understand why. Today is one of those days, Capricorn, if you woke up feeling something you can't quite name, a tightness in your chest that isn't anxiety, a restlessness that isn't stress, a pull towards something you can't see yet. You're not imagining it. Mars is moving through the part of the sky that speaks directly to your sign's deepest instincts. And when Mars speaks to Capricorn, it doesn't whisper. It ignites. You are the sign of the mountain, of the long climb, of the quiet ones who keep walking long after everyone else has stopped to rest. You've built your life on discipline, on doing the work even when no one applauds you for it. But discipline without fire can start to feel like a cage, and lately some of you have felt caged, tired, going through the motions of a life that used to feel meaningful and now just feels heavy. That heaviness has a reason, and today it starts to lift. Mars is the planet of action, courage, and raw will. It's the part of the cosmos that doesn't ask permission. It moves, and when it activates a grounded, determined sign like yours, it doesn't create chaos, it creates ignition. Think of it like a spark finding dry wood that's been waiting, patiently, for exactly this moment. You may have noticed it already. A sudden burst of motivation after weeks of feeling stuck. A conversation that lit something up in you. An old idea resurfacing with new urgency, as if it's saying, now, not later, now. These aren't coincidences. These are the first signs that something within you is realigning with something much bigger than your daily routine. Here's what makes today different from every other Tuesday you've lived through. Capricorn energy is built for endurance, not bursts. You're used to slow, steady progress, the kind that takes years to show results. But Mars doesn't work in years. Mars works in moments. And when a fire sign's planet meets an earth sign's patience, something rare happens. The patience doesn't disappear. It gets fuel. Your steady climb suddenly has momentum behind it. Think about the mountain climber who has spent months preparing, training, mapping the route, building strength one day at a time. And then, one morning, the weather clears, the wind stops, and the summit becomes visible for the first time. Nothing about the climber changed overnight, but the conditions did. And suddenly, what felt impossible starts to feel close. That's you, right now. You've been doing the quiet work, the unseen work, the kind nobody claps for, and today the conditions are beginning to clear. This is why so many Capricorns are feeling something stir today that they can't fully explain. It's not random, it's not just a mood, it's an alignment between the effort you've already put in and the energy now arriving to meet it. You didn't waste those hard years, you didn't waste that patience, you were building the foundation for a moment like this one. So if today feels different, trust that feeling, don't dismiss it as tiredness or coincidence. Something within you recognizes what's coming, even before your mind catches up. Capricorn, you have always been someone who trusts results more than feelings. But today, I want you to trust the feeling first, because it's trying to tell you something your logical mind hasn't caught up to yet. Something is waking up, and it's not asking for your permission, it's simply letting you know it's time. Keep watching, because what comes next explains exactly why this moment has been so long in the making, and why every delay, every setback, every not yet was never a punishment, it was preparation. 2. The destiny that has been waiting. Let's talk about the waiting, Capricorn, because you know it better than almost any other sign. You've waited for the promotion that kept getting pushed back. You've waited for the relationship that took longer to become what it needed to be. You've waited for the right time, the right resources, the right window. And sometimes that window seemed to close right as you reached for it. If you've ever quietly asked yourself, "Why does everything take so long for me?" this section is for you. Here's a truth that might be hard to hear, but even harder to ignore once you see it. None of that waiting was wasted. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, the planet of time, structure, and mastery. Saturn doesn't rush. Saturn builds, and anything built under Saturn's watch tends to last. But it also tends to take longer than you'd like. This is the paradox of your sign. You are capable of building things that outlive trends, outlive doubt, outlive other people's opinions of you. But that kind of building requires time most people aren't willing to give. You gave it, even when it hurt. Even when you watched others move faster, achieve sooner, get recognized quicker. You kept laying bricks anyway. Now, imagine your life as a house being built in silence. For a long time, all anyone could see, including you, was scaffolding, dust, unfinished walls. It didn't look like much from the outside. It might not have felt like much from the inside either. But underneath that scaffolding, something solid was forming. Foundations don't announce themselves. They just hold. Mars arriving now doesn't mean the building suddenly appears finished. It means the scaffolding starts coming down. It means people and circumstances begin to see what you've actually been creating this whole time. Think about the seasons for a moment. Winter doesn't fail because nothing blooms. Winter is doing something essential beneath the surface, strengthening roots, preparing soil, protecting what's dormant so it can survive and eventually thrive. If you felt like you've been in a personal winter, one that's lasted longer than you expected, understand this. Winters end, and what grows after a long winter tends to grow deeper roots than anything that bloomed too quickly. This is your season shifting. Many Capricorns carry a quiet grief about time spent in jobs that didn't fulfill them, time spent proving themselves to people who never truly saw them, time spent being the responsible one, while quietly wondering when it would be their turn to be taken care of, to be celebrated, to receive instead of only give. If that resonates with you, I want you to know that grief is valid, and it doesn't disqualify you from what's coming. It qualifies you. Because here's what Mars in this position is really doing. It's rewarding endurance, not luck, not shortcuts. Endurance, the kind you've already proven you have. Picture someone who has been running a long-distance race, mile after mile, without applause, without a crowd, without even being sure anyone is watching. And then, somewhere past the halfway point, they hear it. The faint sound of a crowd ahead, not because the race is over, but because they're finally close enough for others to see them coming. That sound is starting now, Capricorn, softly, but it's there. The opportunities that may open in the coming days and weeks, a conversation that leads somewhere unexpected, a door that reopens after you thought it was closed, a resource or person arriving at exactly the right moment. These aren't random strokes of luck. They are responses to years of discipline the universe has been quietly tracking, even when it didn't feel like anyone was. You don't need to force this. You don't need to manufacture urgency or chase every opportunity that appears. Mars isn't asking you to abandon who you are. It's asking you to let your steadiness finally be met with movement, to let the mountain you've been climbing start to feel a little less steep. If you've been waiting for a sign that your effort mattered, that the sacrifices weren't pointless, that the patience wasn't naive, let this be that sign. Not because the universe owes you anything, but because energy like the kind you've poured out rarely stays unanswered forever. Something has been waiting for you, Capricorn, and it's starting to move toward you now. But how will you know it's really happening? How will you recognize the signs when they arrive, especially if they don't look the way you expected? That's exactly what we're going to uncover next. 3. The signs the universe is sending. Have you been noticing things lately, Capricorn? Small things, things that make you pause for half a second longer than usual. Maybe it's a number, 1111 on the clock, 444 on a receipt, a house number that matches a date that means something to you. You glance at it, and for a moment something inside you stirs. Not fear, not exactly excitement either, just recognition. Like some part of you understands something your conscious mind hasn't put into words yet. That's not nothing. Ask yourself honestly, how many times has this happened in just the past week? Repeating numbers are often described as gentle nudges, quiet confirmations that you're on a path aligned with something greater, even when the day-to-day doesn't feel especially magical. You don't have to believe they control your fate, but notice how often they appear exactly when you needed reassurance the most. Then there are the coincidences, the ones too specific to easily dismiss. You think of someone you haven't spoken to in months, and they text you within the hour. You have a passing thought about a certain topic, and then it appears 3 more times that same day. In a conversation, a headline, a stranger's comment. Carl Jung called this synchronicity meaningful coincidence that feels like more than chance, even if it can't be proven. Has that been happening to you, Capricorn? Have certain names, places, or ideas kept resurfacing, almost as if they're trying to get your attention? And then there are the dreams, not the forgettable kind that dissolve the moment you wake up, but the vivid ones, the ones that stay with you for hours, sometimes days, dreams about old chapters of your life resurfacing, dreams about people you haven't thought about in years, dreams that feel less like random noise and more like your subconscious processing something important, something shifting beneath the surface of your waking life. If your sleep has felt different lately, more vivid, more emotional, more symbolic, that's worth paying attention to. Your mind may be preparing you for a change your conscious self hasn't fully accepted yet. There's another sign, quieter than the rest, and Capricorns often miss it because you're so used to pushing feelings aside in favour of logic. It's the gut feeling, the instinct that says not this before you can explain why, or the pull towards something, a decision, a person, a new direction that makes no logical sense on paper but feels undeniably right in your body. You've spent so much of your life leading with your head, structure, planning, practicality. These are your strengths and they've carried you far. But right now, during this Mars-activated window, your intuition is trying to speak louder than usual. Ask yourself, when was the last time you actually listened to it instead of overriding it with logic? Unexpected conversations are another signal worth noticing. Someone says something in passing, a stranger, an old friend, a co-worker, and it lands differently than it should. It stays with you. It answers a question you didn't even realise you'd been asking. These moments can feel small on the surface, but they often carry messages disguised as small talk. Here's a question worth sitting with. Over the past few days, has anyone said something to you that felt oddly timed? Something that seemed to speak directly to a private thought or worry you hadn't shared with anyone? None of these signs, the numbers, the coincidences, the dreams, the gut feelings, the conversations, are meant to be treated as certainties. Think of them less like proof and more like breadcrumbs, gentle indicators that you're being guided, even when the path ahead isn't fully visible yet. You don't need to interpret every single one perfectly, you just need to stay open enough to notice them. Capricorn, your nature is to want evidence before you trust something. That's not a flaw. It's part of what makes you so capable of building real, lasting things. But right now, during this particular alignment, I want you to try something different. I want you to let a few of these signs simply be signs, not proof, not certainty. Just gentle nudges reminding you that you're not walking this path completely alone. because once you start noticing them, you'll realize something important. They've probably been there for a while. You were just too busy, too tired, or too focused on logistics to look up and see them. So now that you're paying attention, now that you can feel something moving around you and within you, the real question becomes, what do you do next? How do you meet this energy instead of letting it pass you by? That's exactly where we're headed now. 4. What Capricorn should do, next awareness without action, is just a feeling that fades. So let's talk about what to actually do with everything stirring inside you right now, Capricorn. The first thing Mars asks of you is simple, but not easy. Move. Not recklessly, not impulsively, but move. Capricorns are famous for their patience, and that patience has served you well. But patience can quietly turn into hesitation if you're not careful. There's a difference between waiting for the right moment and waiting because fear has disguised itself as wisdom. Ask yourself honestly, is there something you've been putting off, not because the timing is genuinely wrong, but because moving forward feels vulnerable? A message you haven't sent, an application you haven't submitted, a boundary you haven't set, a goal you've quietly shelved because it felt unrealistic for someone like you? Mars doesn't reward hesitation. Mars rewards motion, even imperfect motion. Even a single step taken with a shaking hand still counts as a step forward. The second thing this energy asks of you is confidence, not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, grounded kind that comes from trusting your own competence. You have spent years proving to yourself, in private, that you can handle hard things. You've handled disappointment, you've handled setbacks, you've handled being underestimated. That track record is real, it's evidence. Use it. When self-doubt creeps in, and it will, because that's part of being human, remind yourself of everything you've already survived and built. You are not starting from zero. You are starting from experience. The third piece of guidance is about discipline, but a slightly different kind than you're used to. You already know how to discipline your actions, your schedule, your habits, your responsibilities. Now this energy is asking you to discipline your doubt, to notice when a fearful thought arises and choose deliberately not to let it run the show. This isn't about pretending fear doesn't exist. It's about not letting fear make your decisions for you. Releasing fear doesn't mean never feeling it. It means feeling it, acknowledging it, and moving forward anyway. Courage was never the absence of fear, Capricorn. It's action taken alongside it. The fourth piece is learning to trust your intuition even when it can't be fully explained. We talked about this in the last section. The gut feelings, the pulls, the quiet yes or no that rises before logic even has time to weigh in. This period is asking you to give that inner voice a little more room, not to abandon your practical mind, but to let intuition and logic work as partners instead of rivals. Try this simple practice. Before making a decision this week, pause for just a few seconds and ask yourself how it feels in your body, not just how it looks on paper. Tightness, hesitation, dread, these are information. So is lightness, clarity, and quiet excitement. You don't have to obey every feeling blindly, but you can start listening to them as real data, not just noise to override. The fifth thing to remember is this: aligned action doesn't have to be big to matter. You don't need to overhaul your entire life today. You don't need a dramatic, cinematic leap to prove you're taking this seriously. Small, consistent, intentional steps, taken today, tomorrow, and the day after, are exactly what this energy is asking for. Mars isn't demanding a sprint. It's demanding that you stop standing still. Maybe today that means finally sending the message you've been drafting for weeks. Maybe it means signing up for the thing you've been thinking about for months. Maybe it simply means saying no to something that's been draining you, so there's finally room for something that isn't. Whatever it is for you specifically, Trust that you already know deep down what your next right step is. You don't need permission from the stars to take it. You just needed a reminder that the timing finally supports you. Because here's the truth about Capricorn energy meeting Mars energy. This isn't about the universe handing you your destiny on a silver platter. It never works that way for your sign, and honestly, you wouldn't want it to. You value what you build. This is about the universe finally clearing enough space, enough momentum, enough alignment, so that when you do move, you're not fighting the current anymore. You're moving with it. So take a breath and take the step you've been putting off, because what's coming next in the message this entire video has been building toward will mean so much more once you understand that you were never meant to wait for someone else to hand you your destiny. You were always meant to walk toward it yourself. 5. The powerful message. Waiting at the end. Capricorn, if you've made it this far, I don't think that's an accident. Something in you needed to hear all of this today. Maybe not because your life is about to transform overnight. Real transformation rarely happens that way, but because you needed permission to believe, even quietly, even privately, that things really can shift. That the version of your life you've been hoping for isn't naive to want, that it's allowed to actually happen. Let's be honest about something important. No video, no planetary alignment, no set of numbers repeating on a clock can guarantee your future. Nothing can promise you a specific outcome, a specific date, a specific person or opportunity arriving exactly when you want it to. And I think deep down you already know that. You're too grounded, too practical to need false certainty. What you need, what all of us need sometimes, is a reminder that hope and realism aren't opposites. Here's what I do believe, Capricorn. I believe energy, like the kind moving through your sign right now, tends to correlate with real shifts in motivation, courage, and clarity. Not because the planets are pulling strings behind the scenes, but because paying attention to moments like this changes how you show up. When you believe something meaningful is possible, you take the message more seriously. You notice the opportunity you might have scrolled past. You send the message you might have deleted. You say yes to the thing you might have talked yourself out of. In that sense, this isn't really about Mars at all. Mars is simply the invitation. You are the one who decides whether to accept it. Think back to everything we've talked about today, the heaviness that's been lifting, the years of quiet effort that were never wasted, even when it felt that way. The signs, the numbers, the coincidences, the dreams, the conversations that have been trying to get your attention. The reminder, the hesitation, while understandable, isn't the same as safety. The truth that your intuition deserves to be trusted as much as your logic always has been. All of that was leading here, to this moment, where I want you to make yourself a quiet promise. Not a promise about outcomes, because those were never fully in your control and pretending otherwise wouldn't serve you, but a promise about how you show up going forward. A promise to keep taking the small steps, even without proof they'll work. A promise to notice the signs instead of dismissing them out of habit. A promise to let yourself want things openly without immediately preparing for disappointment. A promise to trust that the version of you who's been climbing this whole time deserves to eventually reach solid, beautiful ground. Destiny, if it exists at all, rarely looks like a single dramatic moment. It looks like this: 100 small choices made consistently, even when no one is watching, even when progress feels invisible. It looks like refusing to give up during your hardest winters. It looks like trusting a feeling in your gut, even when your mind wanted more evidence. It looks like getting back up, quietly, again and again, until one day you look back and realize how far you've actually come. You are already doing that, Capricorn. You have been doing that for a long time. So whatever specific challenge you've been carrying, a career that hasn't unfolded the way you hoped, a relationship you're unsure about, a goal that feels perpetually out of reach. I want you to hold on to this feeling a little longer after this video ends. Not blind certainty, just quiet, steady hope. The kind your sign is actually very good at, even when you forget it about yourself. You were not built for easy paths. You were built for meaningful ones. And meaningful paths almost always take longer, ask more of you, and test your patience in ways that feel unfair at times. But they also tend to lead somewhere worth all of it. If today felt different, if something in you stirred while listening to this, trust that. Let it move you, even gently, even just one small step at a time. Not because a video told you to, but because some part of you already recognized the truth in it. You've done the hard part already, Capricorn. You kept going when it would have been easier to stop. Now it's time to let that effort finally start meeting you halfway. Whatever is waiting for you next, walk toward it with the same steady courage that's brought you this far. That's how your story has always unfolded, and that's exactly how it continues from here. If you're ready to step into this next chapter, Capricorn, comment "I am ready" below. Let this be your quiet declaration to yourself. If this message meant something to you, tap like so more of this reaches the people who need it. Subscribe for daily Capricorn guidance, because tomorrow brings a new message just for you. And if you know another Capricorn who's been waiting patiently, quietly for their moment, send this to them today. They might need it more than they're letting on.